Welcome to the deep dive session covering the theme Investing in Tourism Sri Lanka, convened by Sri Lanka Tourism. We have an eminent panel lined up, and this discussion is moderated by Mr. Hiran Kure, Chairman of Jetwing Symphony PLC. Hiran, over to you.
Invest in blue oceans, coastal waters and blue skies. Invest in clean energy, adventure, momentum, and exciting opportunity. Invest in history, culture, and tradition. Invest in ancient healing heritage. Invest in the most exciting wildlife safari destinations, the world's most exclusive tea and cuisine. Invest in sustainable luxury. Invest in tropical architecture. Invest in mastery, world-class hospitality education, artistry. Invest in determination, untapped potential. Invest in ambition, passion, vision. Invest in boundless ingenuity. Invest in innovation. Invest in tomorrow. Invest in Tourism Sri Lanka.
Welcome to the deep dive session covering the theme Investing in Tourism Sri Lanka, convened by Sri Lanka Tourism. We have an eminent panel lined up, and this discussion is moderated by Mr. Hiran Kure, Chairman of Jetwing Symphony PLC. Hiran, over to you.
Thank you. Ayubowan and Vanakkam. This is an interesting session, and I have four extremely eminent speakers, tourism personalities in our country. Before I hand over to them, I'd just like to tell a small story. One of the things that I love doing, being in tourism in Sri Lanka, is to travel around my beautiful island. And when I travel, I see shades, different shades of green all the time. And that's the farmers at work. Farmers, most of the time, are very, very brave. They brave the weather, the rain and the sunshine. And sometimes if it rains too much, their production is lost. And sometimes if there's too much of sun, their production is lost. So I think sometimes we are like the farmers right now. At the moment with the pandemic, we are, either there is too much rain or too much sunshine, our production is lost. But we are not out. The government always comes in to help us. The government has helped us to stay afloat right now, and I'm sure they will continue to assist us to be alive when tourism kicks off again. So I'm going to start off with a very, very prominent personality who's actually not a Sri Lankan, but I consider him very much a Sri Lankan, Pierre Pringers. He's done so much for Sri Lanka over the last 30 years, and he's now so passionate about our waters. And Pierre, your company, Yachting Sri Lanka, you design boats, you build boats, and now you're talking of taking these boats all over the island, and you think this is the right time. Do share with us what you're planning to do, how you plan to do, and where you're going to take us. And this is, I can't call it groundbreaking. I think this is water-breaking innovation from Pierre Pringers. Over to you, Pierre.
Thank you, Hira. And first of all, I'm going to talk as an interpreter, not as an expert. As you said, 40 years of Sri Lankan, and I'm not second success story right down. Whereas with the tires, we were converting one of the natural resource, Lanka, natural rubber, into tires. And we became the number one in the world in industrial solid tires. We want to do something similar for yacht building, yacht operation, chartering. And we have decided to go for it in combination with tourism. So I will quickly run over the experience of the last 15 years. It all started with the whale watching. We pioneered the whale watching in 2007. In 2007, there was one whale watching boat sponsored by our foundation, Building a Future Foundation, where we train youngsters for businesses on the ocean. And by 2010, there were 60 boats. Why was it so fast? Well, it was very easy. It was in the hands of the fishing communities, and they had boats, they converted their boats, and 30% of the boats were new boats. Then the second story is not something that we did, but to look at growth patterns was the jet ski story. It's a very specific water sport area. And again, in 2014, when it really started, there were maybe 5 jet skis. Now there are 400 plus. So that's again in the hands of a lot of small entrepreneurs, private owners, and a bunch of good importers who take care of the products. The third story is the story of surfing boards. You know, in the 2014 also, there were maybe 50 surfing boards in Sri Lanka. Today, there are 4,000 plus, and there are hundreds and hundreds of small entrepreneurs who are exploiting this for the benefit of tourism. Small scale tourism, but still very important. So what did we do? We started basically seriously in 2014, where with the success stories we had, we wanted to spread it more over the island. Whale watching was a one location business, everything around Mirisa, and there are 2 other locations, Trincomalee and Talpidia. But basically it was one location. And we created the Sri Lanka Yachting Group, where we started boat design, boat building, boat charter, with the objective to have 20 boats in the water by 2020, but we failed to that objective for many reasons. Well, one of the reasons was that it was a pioneering exercise. There was nothing before, so we had to take everything from scratch. But we based our strategy on cooperation. So we did a lot of cooperations with foreign companies to build yachts and specific charter boats according to international standards, but adapted to the local needs, actually, which are, tropical cruising, and more people in the region also are less oriented to sailing itself, but they are more interested in entertainment and relaxation, and that's so for tourism as well as for, the local population here. But what have we done then in this first period? Our growth was not as fast as the other things. It was a very slow growth. And but what did we do well? Basically we took that period to develop the right products. We tested the products with with clients, to see whether they corresponded to the thing. And moreover, we developed a new concept of a cruise boat. It's a boutique cruise boat, which is meant not to go on the oceans, but for coastal cruising. Ideal for Sri Lankan waters with a very shallow draught. It can go very close to shore. It's the Ocean Diamond 27 meter boat with 10 cabins, and now we have a version with 12 cabins. All the cabins are luxury cabins, and 80% of them are with a balcony and a private terrace. So that's a new way of cruising. And of course, we also have our classic range of Sea Cat boats, which are very similar to boats built all over the world. There are a lot of catamaran builders all over the world, but we decided to make Sri Lanka also a capital in Asia for building and developing yachts and specifically sailing catamarans, which is an upcoming the right product for the future, also for the region. So what happened then? So the first game changer in the whole story was this Ocean Diamond launch. We launched it in 2020, and basically we didn't have much business for a whole year. But first quarter, amazingly, first quarter of 2021, only with local tourists, we had our best sales performance ever. And with the combination of our Ocean Diamond 27 and the more classic, more adventurous boats, I would say, sailing boats, we found that the local tourists actually were very keen now to come on board, and they enjoyed it thoroughly. Of course, they had to work also, and we didn't have a single tourist. But for me, this was a flashpoint where I said, look, this is the right time. We have the right products. Now we have to find the right business model to go forward. So basically, and as I mentioned in the beginning, we are working with corporations, and we are not here to compete with the classic tour operators, hotel owners, and so on. We want to work with them and add something, add some value to what they have to offer, add some experience to it. So game-changing number 2 was the availability of 2 hectares of water in the Port City Marina. So we took the lease on the water for a period of two years to start the mooring and to start the operations from Colombo Port City. And by doing that, whereas earlier the cruising and water sports center was based and centered around Mirissa, suddenly, Colombo became as important and even more important than Mirissa. Because, of course, the wealth is there, the economic power of the capital of Sri Lanka is there. That was the second game changer. The third game changer is that I fell in love with Jaffna and the North. I went to Jaffna, and we decided also with our foundation to build a training center for the youngsters there in Jaffna, a training center actually for boat building and for boat operation. And we had long discussions with the people there, with the authorities there, with the governor, with the government agents, and so on and so forth. And basically, we came to the conclusion that we had to do something for Jaffna and the North, because there are 22 or 26 islands there. It's undiscovered territory. It's very close to the Indian coast. It's only 28 kilometers away from India. And, there are almost no tourists there. So that's the game-changing number 2, Jaffna. So we discussed and figured out how can we bring Jaffna closer to Colombo and more attractive for tour operators and hotel operators. And it takes 7 hours by road to travel from Colombo to Jaffna. And so it's very tiring, I would say, in a car or even in a bus. So we looked at the opportunity to organize cruises from Colombo Port City Marina up to Jaffna, crossing the Adams Bridge with the help of the Navy, and came up with a whole plan. A plan that allows people now to eventually go to Jaffna in a different way. And why is it in a different way? Well, because the boat on which they will cruise, basically, is their hotel. They can stay into it, they can enjoy, they can relax, they could have fine dining while they're traveling. It's the principal mode of transport. So they don't travel in a bus, but they can do whatever they want. They can read books, they can enjoy the sea life and the beauty of the coastal scenery. They can do many stopovers on the road to Jaffna. You have lots of stopovers there. If you can bring the map on the screen, I can explain it more precisely then with the technical people there. So it's also a low CO2 footprint mode of transport, because we use sail power, solar power, as well as diesel power. It's the perfect way to combine an experiential tourist attraction of nautical activities and water sports and all what Sri Lanka has to offer in this regard. It's an opportunity to meet now genuine coastal population. Most of the tourist spots are very concentrated on single areas. But if you go to the north, for instance, to Jaffna, there are people, you don't meet tourists, you really meet genuine coastal population. Number 7 is you travel in comfort. And 8, the products for a wide spectrum of clients. It is for non-sailors. It is for people who eventually go on cruises, on large cruise ships, which are not taking off again easily under the circumstances. Now, when you look on the map, basically, you see on the west coast, Colombo City Marina, and on the east coast, you see also Trincomalee. So when we looked at the Jaffna option, we also discussed that it would work well for travel. If you look at on the map at Colombo City, you can go to the south, go up to Paul, and go up to the south coast, up to Kirita. The same thing, you can go to the north and stop over in many places on the way, in Pitya, Puttalam, and so on and so forth. So basically, this is a game-changing business idea. Then, after we had all this experience, then I decided we cannot sit and wait now. We have to do something. So we decided to launch a $38 million investment and look for investors who would take portions of that, portions of 3.8 million each, and one unit, an SPV, would contain an Ocean Diamond boat with 12 rooms and an Ocean Diamond Adventure, which is the SeaCat version with 8 cabins. So one unit, one SPV would have 20 rooms to manage and to sell. And they are moving rooms, okay? So people can travel while they are staying, while they are eating, while they are doing all sorts of relaxation. So the investment of 3.8 million looks a lot, but basically per room, the cost is $190,000, which is close to competitive with what is happening on land. So we are then looking to find investors who are interested in this new type of asset. We are not selling a boat. We are proposing a business investment which will generate EBITDA and which will not be related to the value of the asset itself, but related to the capability of generating cash flow, basically. So a boat depreciates every year.
Pierre, if I can interrupt, I'd like to. How long more would you need? Because I have other questions as well.
1 minute.
Okay,
I finished. Yeah. So the advantage is it's a moving hotel, so you can operate 360 days in blue water and blue sky conditions, and you can even move your boat if business is bad in Sri Lanka. You can move it to India. You can move it to the Maldives. So it's a movable asset. It's not a fixed asset on land. It's a different type of approach. But it's an approach for an innovative future. Thank you very much, everybody.
Very exciting stuff. Thank you, Pierre. I'm looking forward to going with you to Jaffna sometime soon. I will now move on to Krishan Barendra, Chairman of John Keells Holdings, one of the most respected and largest listed companies in Sri Lanka. They've always been doing groundbreaking stuff in the island, and now in Colombo, to me, it's one of the architectural masterpieces. I don't know about the rest of it that is going on. So I will ask Krishan to talk about the success, the goings behind Cinnamon Life and the development in Colombo. Over to you, Krishan.
Thanks, Hiran. Yes, the Cinnamon Life project, which we started a few years back, is an integrated development. It's an investment of over $900 million, which is the largest private investment in Sri Lanka to date. The complex has an 800-room hotel together with a number of ballroom spaces, a shopping mall of 500,000 square feet, 2 apartment towers with a total of about 450 apartments, and a commercial tower of 24 stories. What I'd just like to touch on here, since we are talking to potential investors in Sri Lanka, is on the process of investing in the hotel plant in the country. we have had the confidence, apart from Cinnamon Life, which is a very large investment, we've recently also rebuilt a hotel in Bentota, which is on the southern coast of the country, 150 room, 5-star hotel. And we are building another property in Kandy, a Cinnamon Red Hotel in Kandy. So we continue to invest in the hotel space because we believe in the potential. And just some thoughts for people looking at investing here. There are, if you look to invest in the region, in countries, in other countries, there are so many issues around getting approvals and getting the construction going. Yes, there are challenges in Sri Lanka, but I think looking at our experience trying to build hotels in some other countries, it is easier in Sri Lanka. Starting with the tourist board, where there is a one-stop shop concept, where they help with all the approvals for a new hotel. There are challenges. It is not entirely smooth sailing, but the fact that there is a one-stop shop as a facilitator is a very positive help for an investor. Obtaining land, if it is private land or if it is land allocated by the government for tourism purposes, then it is not a challenge. But of course, if you want to acquire land from the government or lease land from the government in an area that is not previously allocated for tourism, it can be a challenge. Then you also have the Board of Investment, one of the organizers of this conference. You have a number of tax concessions that you can get from the Board of Investment. The Cinnamon Life project is what's called a flagship investment, and there it has a 25-year tax holiday with a full tax holiday for 10 years, and a number of other concessions like concessions on import duties. We also have to work with the Urban Development Authority in Colombo very closely for planning approvals and building approvals. Again, I'm not trying to praise them because we are talking to investors, but it is true that there is a lot of dynamism, and generally when it comes to private investments like hotel investments, you find a very positive support from the UDA. A big development like this involves a lot of imports. The customs clearances can be a challenge. It takes a reasonable amount of time. I'd like to highlight that as a challenge. However, the fact that the Colombo port is a hub port for the region makes it easier and faster to bring in materials that you need for construction. And one thing we hear about when we look at other countries for new hotel developments are the challenges around getting materials on time for the construction. Colombo, being a major regional hub port, helps in that regard. Then on people. Now, labor can be a challenge, especially for very large projects like the Cinnamon Life project. At the peak, we had about 3,500 workers on the site, and about 1/3 had to be from overseas, from regional countries. But one thing that is encouraging is the core expertise, like the engineering expertise, is available in the country. And the engineers now have the experience because in the last 10 years in particular, there has been a lot of investment in new constructions. So you have the engineering expertise. Labor, you may need to import a certain component because if the scale of your project is significant. On contractors, again an issue, availability of contractors, because we've had, as I said, many large projects in the country in recent years. You have a number of foreign contractors from the region as well as local contractors who now have the experience and expertise. As a result, you will have a very competitive bidding process, and you should be able to procure a competitive price for your construction. So overall, as I said at the start, I thought I should touch on these points because we are addressing potential investors. Yes, there are challenges. I don't want to exaggerate that there are no challenges, but compared to a number of countries that we have come across in the region, I feel that the process of investing in a new hotel property in Sri Lanka is relatively smooth. So I just wanted to talk on that.
Thanks, Krishan. I think everybody in Sri Lanka wishes you well, because as the first Sri Lankan company to take on such a massive project, and would like to see it a tremendous success so that the others can follow as well. Now I move on to my friend Munisan Darshana Monidasa, somebody who has created so many experiences in the area of food. I still remember the time he took me one day to the Negombo fish market, asked us to buy some calamari, and he just took it to the hotel kitchen, asked the cook to clean it, and he just cut it and put some sauce and gave it. I think that was one of the nicest food experiences we've had in Negombo. So Darshana, you created, not only a brand within Sri Lanka, you've taken Ministry of Crab outside, along with your Nihonbashi, which you started many years ago. I mean, tell us a little bit about what, made you get into this, and also why some of the other Sri Lankans are not as daring as you when it comes to this kind of cuisine, this kind of experiences.
I think, first of all, what is really, really important is that to know that Sri Lanka has a lot of ingredients. Many countries don't. Dubai, Singapore, everything has to be imported. But we are the ones that have been sending our crabs to Singapore, and those crabs have been more famous there than Sri Lanka. So we still have ingredients here. And for a chef, for a restaurant, the most amazing thing is to be able to go to a farm, a beach, see the fish coming in, produce being harvested. And so that's our first inspiration. And I think there was a time that everyone said that to have the best crabs of Sri Lanka, one must travel to Singapore, which is not the case anymore. Again, the understanding that these products are, the prices of these products are based not in rupees, not in Sri Lanka, but they are actually priced overseas in US dollars or Singapore dollars. So the first aspect was to actually get that same quality. And after that, I think it was marrying Sri Lanka's image, spices, black pepper, chili. Where we are located, Ministry of Crab, I think is really, really lucky to be in a 300-year-old Dutch building in the center of fort. And all those elements, I think, created a unique restaurant. Going overseas, I think, was something that we thought it would happen, but it happened really fast. And we have 6 Ministry of Crabs around the world, 1 in Sri Lanka, 1 in Maldives, and Shanghai, Mumbai, Manila, and Bangkok. The reception has been great. And there are more elements of Sri Lanka that is undiscovered. Like Pierre said before, whale watching came in 2007. Jeffrey Baba designed beautiful hotels 50 years ago, 40 years ago. Still, we are a diamond being cut. There are so many elements. Big, small operators can come here. There are opportunities. There are amazing stuff that we can still take and tinker with and create something unique. I am bullish on Sri Lanka. And right now we are all going through a bad patch, but we are going to bounce back, and there are going to be more amazing places, amazing things to create. And we have the resources, the manpower, the creativity, and we have the natural ingredients. Let it be a rock, let it be water, let it be a river, a lake, ocean, beach. It's all here. We are an island of so many islands. We are a spice island, we are a tea island, we are a crab island, we are a beach island, we are a cultural island. And I think what we have to, the bottom line is we need to see what Sri Lanka has and appreciate that more and more to create unique and amazing products.
Fabulous. I mean, you've what you've done is very, very admirable, and something that almost everybody who comes to Sri Lanka, has to dine at Ministry of Crab. So that's something that's very special. So I hope many others will follow you and create such experiences, so that it's not only Ministry of Crab, maybe other areas also, that there'll be more dining experiences in Colombo for people when it comes. Maybe you have been always talking about, you like to share your knowledge, right? And you're not only you are a fabulous chef, but you also a trainer, a teacher, right? Maybe some of the others can, during this lockdown period, maybe come and talk to you and get some inspiration from you, so that they too will start. Maybe you can tell us a little bit of how you started Ministry of Crab.
So Ministry of Crab started from a TV show. We filmed one episode about our crab in Singapore and in Sri Lanka. And one of my friends asked me, why don't you do a crab restaurant? And after that, Kumar and Mahala got involved in the restaurant. And it was bringing back our crab. It kind of sad that we as Sri Lankans did not appreciate our own crab. It was great that Singapore appreciated, respected, marketed, branded Sri Lankan crab. So it was.
They call it Negombo crab, actually. In Singapore, they call it Negombo crab.
And crazily, no one attempted to use these crabs. They are expensive. And I think the hotels kept away because of the costs. But again, we want to create a location that respects and celebrates these crabs. And it was simple as that. But most of the time, I think we try to do things that other hotels are doing. So it's every restaurant, every hotel is trying to copy each other. And you get lost in it. I think the idea is to understand less is more, try to create something that no one's ever done. And that's where one remembers food of a restaurant or a hotel. And I think chefs in Sri Lanka are still scared to go narrow on the menus. Focus on ingredients, focus on technique, and try to create something that's not made. And I think that's very, very important for our industry.
Thank you, Darshan. One of the guys whom I really admire when it comes to food, and who's a daring personality in Sri Lanka. Now I move on to Timothy Wright, head of Shangri-La in Sri Lanka. Shangri-La is a group that, it's a global brand that brings its own money, unlike most of the other big global brands which lend their name only to others who are either third-party investors or local investors. Shangri-La brings their own money and invests it where it's really needed. So I think we have to compliment Shangri-La, and maybe I will ask Tim to share some of the, your experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what you've been through in Sri Lanka and your experiences over here, Tim.
Thank you, Hiran. Well, I came to Sri Lanka initially in 2016, and as our chairperson Hui Kwok has mentioned earlier, the whole idea of coming to Sri Lanka started a little earlier in 2010. And, as part of our vision at Shangri-La, pioneering new horizons has always been part of our DNA. Sri Lanka was certainly a new horizon for us, and we had previous experience of pioneering those new horizons in the 80s and 90s in China and the Philippines. I must say the welcome that I received when I first came was typically Sri Lankan. Warm, friendly, helpful, and perhaps a little curious about what we were about and what were our values. What attracted us at the time of the initial investment back in 2010 became a reality as we worked through the project. We experienced, obviously, the ease of doing business. We found this large pool of talent that were educated, and many could speak English. We found Sri Lanka was a great place to live and work with decent schools and decent medical facilities. As we went through that construction period and the development phase of the project, as Kishan perhaps mentioned earlier, projects of this size and scale don't come without problems and some roadblocks. But the BOI, the Board of Investment, became our one-stop shop. They managed to get different agencies together and brought those agencies in a very positive manner to try and resolve those problems that we were experiencing. We had to learn a new business culture here in Sri Lanka, and that can be quite different to many other countries, but we were fortunate to have a very supportive and knowledgeable local partner that helped us understand and adapt to this new environment. And finally, I think the whole business community, Sri Lanka Tourism, and even the Hotel Association made us feel very welcome and allowed us to become at ease and included us in the day-to-day running of businesses in a very short space of time.
Tim, in addition to what you said, I know, you employ a lot of Sri Lankans.
Yes.
I'm personally aware that you have only a few expatriates working
Yes.
under you. The rest are all Sri Lankan. I think now there is a little bit of, uncertainty about tourism, but we are all positive that tourism will take off within the next 5 to 6 months. How are you handling the Sri Lankan people, the training? Do you find them, capable and acceptable to Shangri-La standards?
Yeah, we employ Sri Lankans worldwide. In fact, many of our hotels in the Middle East in particular, and the Maldives, have Sri Lankans. So we've already had previous experience before coming to Colombo. What we found here was, as I said, a huge talent of human capital that had natural hospitality. So for our business, fantastic pool of talent. We obviously looked at that talent and hired for attitude and trained those skills that we required. But I think our experience has been very positive. What we do need to think about is developing that human capital for the future, because we're not only competing with other industries here in Sri Lanka, but we're also competing with potential opportunities for our Sri Lankan talent to potentially go overseas. So we do need to think about the future, although currently things are challenging. The future certainly is very bright.
Great, thank you, Tim. Krishan, I want to move into you again. There is a talk that, okay, have we reached our capacity in Colombo and the rest of the country? Should we just be happy with what we have, or should we go in for further expansion? What is your view on that?
I think if you look at the numbers in the region, Sri Lanka is really catching up after 25 years of war. It doesn't look like it now with COVID, and before that we had the problems in 2019. But because of the 25 years of war, we had only 400,000 tourist arrivals annually until 2009. That grew to 2 million in 2018 and 2019. But that number is still very small. If you look at countries in the region, take the island of Bali in 2019, they had 7 million foreign arrivals, just that small island. Vietnam has over 15 million foreign arrivals. So I think this is only the beginning for Sri Lanka in terms of tourist numbers. 2 million can easily be 4-5 million or more. And if you take the city of Colombo, where yes, in the short term, there will be an oversupply because in recent years there has been a lot of new inventory. But today there are about 5,000 to 6,000 star-class rooms in the city. Compare that to any other city in the region. KL, Thailand, in Bangkok, KL, Jakarta, I think they have 10 times that inventory. So in the short term, there can be an oversupply, but I am confident that if you take a medium-term view, both in the city and in resort locations, there will be demand for more inventory.
Great. So that's a good, very positive sign, rather than thinking, okay, there is enough rooms at the moment, but yes, short term we will struggle a bit, but come on, another few years time, there's still room for expansion, I believe, not only in Colombo but in other areas as well. There's a question that has come online about Ayurveda and wellness, whether there is any incentives for investors. Unfortunately, there is no one from the tourist board in our panel, so I will pass it on to the tourist board director, who can directly respond to that question. Pierre, I want to get back to you. I hope you haven't sailed off somewhere else and you're still with us. You require very specialized manpower for your kind of work. How are you finding, do you find enough Sri Lankans who are capable of building boats to, sailing and servicing them and all of that? Do you have enough of them?
Yes, so I can tell you, Hiran, the labor of Sri Lanka is my biggest joy, my biggest cause of satisfaction. It's my biggest motivation. Essentially, the young people who come out of O level or A level and have nothing to go for, like university. So we tap into that category of people and we train them. We train them to not only work with their brains, but also with their hands. And boat building at the end of the day is a very sophisticated, high-tech business. And we make people proud of what we teach them. We teach them in our training centers. We have one training center in the south, which is very successful, and we train between 60 and 100 youngsters per year. And we are going to do the same in Jaffna. And basically, due to that, I mean, we don't locate our businesses in Colombo, where there is a kind of saturation maybe and more difficulty to find people. But outstation, there is large areas in Sri Lanka which have plenty of people, young people, looking for a rewarding job. So I think I can confirm indeed. And even I would say, Hiram, in my previous life, I was a tire maker, so I learned to make tires. Then I became a boat builder. I learned to build boats. Then I had to charter, so I became a captain and a crew operator and trainer. And now we have to be hotel operators virtually, but we count on you to come on board. And we have to do sales and marketing of tourism. So I'm a little bit overloaded from that side, I would say. But from the later side, thumbs up, no problem.
Fabulous. I mean, that's very encouraging to hear what you're doing and, the commitment you've taken. This is not an easy investment that you have undertaken, and it's a much needed investment because a lot of people have asked me also, you're surrounded by water and you have internal water as well, but we haven't made full use. So we have to congratulate you and wish you the best. And of course, the industry and the government will support you to take this most important project forward. There is another close to 3 minutes. I'm not sure whether there are any questions from the audience that is coming in. Maybe we can talk about the sustainability aspect of it. Pierre, do you want to talk of the sustainability aspect of the seas when you're using this kind of stuff? Or?
Yeah, yes, but I like to highlight one point. Okay. There is a massive opportunity in Sri Lanka to invest in marinas for the future. Okay, the marinas are like the roads for tourism. Okay, if you don't have marinas, you don't have parking places for your boats, places to maintain, places to board and to go off the boat. So there is for people who are in infrastructure development. So the marinas are basically seafront properties combined with the mooring and the operations of yachts. And we are very happy to have now the Port City Marina, and it's still open. I mean, the investor has not been identified. We are only a temporary lessee for the facility. Galle could be developed in a huge, massive marine-based touristic attraction. There is now a small marina developed there with 25 berths or something like that, but that should be the most important marina could be in Galle. On the east coast, you have the natural port of Trincomalee, or the natural ports, areas, which is has a fantastic tourist opportunity for developing our marinas. So, and I think the government should definitely incentivize this sector with proper incentives. And just to finish on this new ventures like what we are proposing in the cruise boats, coastal cruise boats, and also in the marinas, you will see this growing. What we saw in the small enterprises and new products like the surfboards and the things like that is once you have created critical mass and everybody sees that you are successful, you have a kind of wildfire growth behind it. I mean, it's just exploding, you know. We have seen it in the truck tires, and we hope to see this also in the marine sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it was a very enlightening conversation that the five of us had, and tourism is not out, that everybody is so upbeat at this point in time, waiting for better times. And thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on this discussion, and we look forward to having more investment to Sri Lanka.